Shalom, shalom, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com. Greeting, everybody. Hopefully everybody is listening and able to hear me. When we started our class last week, we had technical difficulties. And after about 5 minutes of chatting, it was brought to my attention that there was no sound. So hopefully today we have sound. Hopefully today you have image so you can see my pretty face, which God only knows why you want to. I'm still the old school. Remember that. In my day, okay, I'm gonna show you guys now. How many of you remember the old cassette tapes? When our KosherTorah school was in the olden days back in Chicago, how many of you remember us from then? Over 20 years ago, 25 years ago. We started out using, little, cassette tapes. And then from there, we proceeded, technology marched on. We went to CDs. And then from CDs to MP3s. And now today, everything's all automatic downloads and everything else. So, yeah, we've been through it all. But tonight, I want to bring you into a secret of the Kabbalists. And we've entitled this, the kavanot to unite with a tzaddik, or the meditational practices that we use to unite with an ascended master. That's what we would call a tzaddik in Hebrew. I originally taught this, 15 years ago. This is when I wrote this piece. This is available if you look down into the text for this class. I don't care where you are, Facebook, YouTube, Patreon. This link is there, koshertorah.com/kavanot.tzaddik.jpg. And you can print that out. And if you ever want to, you have my blessings. You can even come out with a nice big fancy version of it like this. In case you need something like that you can sit there and meditate on and the like. But let me tell you something. A lot of people do all this meditation stuff, and in all due respect, it's like the blind leading the blind. Unless you really know what you're doing, you're just not going to know what you're doing. Now, for those of you who follow me on Facebook, been active this week, late December 2020. The number of people who are apparently not Jewish, not educated in or trained in Jewish Kabbalah, but have nevertheless been exposed to and have read all the many books of Kabbalah that are out there in the English-speaking market. And, you can read a lot of books and you can be knowledgeable of a lot of information, but sorry, that doesn't mean that you know anything about Kabbalah. And I, myself, am the example of knowing this. In my early days, 1970s, yippee-ki-yay, there wasn't many English books available on Kabbalah. This is even before Kaplan's stuff was available. We had the Sonsina Zohar and some other stuff, and that was it. And I would be a prolific reader of all these things. They would inspire me and fill me with awe and wonder. It got me motivated to get to Jerusalem and to get connected to the Yeshivat of the Mikubalim, which I was honored and privileged to have that connection. First at Haim Shalom, and then afterwards with Bet El. So I actually had the privilege, the honor of learning there with Shalom Hadaya, Shmuel Darzi, and of course Rav Kaduri. Now, in all the years, and I was there a couple of years, that I was learning there, and I was learning very well. I was reading the books, I had the rabbis explaining it to me, and man, I thought I knew my stuff. If you had asked me what the Shara Kavanot said, or the Otzorot Haim, or the Etz Chaim, bam, 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 I'd quote it right back to it, say everything. And then I got a kick in the stomach. I told you this story many, many a time. That kick in the stomach is when I became a little bad boy in the Haredi world, and I snuck out to see a movie, which just so happened to have been The Empire Strikes Back. And I saw the training sequence between Yoda and Luke Skywalker about having to feel the Force and all that. Somehow, like I said, that hit me like a kick in the stomach. And the following day, I went and approached one of the big Mikubalim, and I said, I feel everything that I've been learning for the past couple of years is wrong. You're holding back. I don't feel anything. It's all in my head. And we went back and forth and back. I've told this story a dozen times. And long story short, I exited Bet El, and I went to Hechal Pinchas, where I met Rebbe Meir Levi, who is the top Talmud of Rab Mordechai Sharabi, the head of the Mikubalim in Yerushalayim, who was actually the original teacher of my teacher. Now, like I've shared in that story, when I've told it before, I wasn't kicked out, I was actually promoted. You see, I felt to ask the right questions. And I couldn't explain why. Can you imagine if I went to the great Mikubalim in Yerushalayim and said, I saw this movie, and Master Yoda was telling us about some truths. I'm learning Kabbalah from Master Yoda. Oh, that would have done taken me very far in the Haredi world of Kabbalah learning. So no, obviously, I couldn't share, but God works in strange ways. Well, Rebbe Meir, after testing me, the first things he said to me, and I remember his words to this day, God bless his soul. B'ni, achshav sheta lamadata ma katuv b'sfarim, ani elemed lecha ech lahabinam. My son, he called me. Now that you've learned what's written in the books, I'm going to teach you how to understand it. And I had no idea what the heck the guy was talking about until years went by, and I said, oh, it's not like what you think it's not like what it's written at all, is it? You got to learn how to read between the lines. Mm-hmm. You see, this is why Kabbalah, to this day, still means to receive. And unless you receive from a real Mikubal who understands and knows the real, shall we say, workings of the system, then you could study and read all these books until you're blue in the face. And I see a lot of people who do. And they can quote to me chapter and verse of all the books and all of this and all of that. And then I stop. I pause. I say one simple thing. No, ma pirush. What does it mean? And you'll see after a run around, they don't have answers. Well, when it comes to the practice of these things, it's vital that you understand the insides of the system, or else you'll never get it to operate. Think about driving a car. All right, I'm going to give you a vehicle, and I'm going to say to you, the pedal on the floor on the right makes it go. The pedal on the floor on the left makes it stop. The wheel you turn makes it go one way or the other. Okay? And if you really want details, there's something called the key. You take it, you turn it, and it starts the motor. Okay? You got it. You ready to drive? Not only no, hell no. Okay? A lot more than that. So when it comes to understanding, especially what we call today the Kabbalah Iyunit, or the contemplative Kabbalah, they call it today the theoretical Kabbalah, not theoretical about it. You have to understand where it comes from and why. I am of the school that believes that the entire Sifrei Zohar was from the school of Moshe de Leon, and not the historical connection to Shimon Bar Yochai. But in that respect, don't think that the Zohar is not from Shimon Bar Yochai. Because we're going to learn what, again, we call the kavanot of uniting with the Tzaddik. How you tap into the consciousness of someone and therefore channel their words. And I believe that's exactly what Moshe de Leon did with the soul, if you will, of Shimon Bar Yochai. And what others have done throughout the centuries. And we still do to this day. But the problem, of course, is when people hear about these things and they go, ooh and ah, and wonder all about it. It sounds so fantastic. And then that which is fantastic gets subject to fantasy. And fantasy, therefore, gets subject to delusion. And people end up doing stupid things, which ultimately end up being very deceptive and delusional, and end up doing things that are harmful not only to themselves, but to others, all the while thinking that they're in touch with ascended masters who are telling them to do weird things. Well, this is what happens when you don't understand the true operations of the system. Now, as I said, this JPEG, we're going to read this JPEG, and I'll explain to you, we can read everything that's here, and after reading it, just like I pointed out to you, like the pedals and the steering wheel in a car, you think, okay, now I got it. Well, you don't, because you don't know how it works. And this is why I'm giving you this class. Because as you know, here at our KosherTorah school, well, let me put everything into a context. As you know, we started way back when in 1993. We started as an anti-cult, anti-missionary program to reach out to teach people proper holy Torah. I mean, I've seen Jews who were getting involved in all kinds of weird stuff. Kabbalah was becoming publicly popular, and everything was like really twisted. And I said, you know, let's get the real Kedusha, the real holiness out there, and let it be. Well, that's been close to 30 years now with the blessings of God. Okay, here we are doing what we do. But my focus has always been to get you to experience these things for yourselves. You have a lot of great teachers out there, many of them my peers, my good friends, and they teach us a lot of good stuff. But uvda, as we call it, uvda means action, or if you will, halacha lama'aseh, the practical halacha, or what we call kabbalah ma'asit, how you put it into practice. Well, that's where my peers usually turn to me, because I'm the wild and crazy guy who not only goes out and goes to movies, but does all of the wild things, because you know something, sometimes what we call mesirat nefesh. You got to really be willing to sacrifice. And some people just aren't that crazy. So yeah, what can I say? But now, let's lay down some foundations, because we want to talk about bonding with the soul of, we call an ascended master a tzaddik. First, before we talk about the bonding, ascending, let's talk about who and what a tzaddik is. Right? Tzaddik, righteous, holy person by definition. But who is that? Well, needless to say, and this is what's important, we have to focus on someone who we know is an actual historical personage. And I emphasize a human being. So this is why we can make contact with the departed soul of someone like Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, or Shni Or Zalman, the Baal Tanya, or the Baal Shem Tov, going back, all right? Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the famous Ramchal. You can make contact with Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, the famous Kabbalist, or Rabbi Chaim Vital, Rabbi Yosef Karo, the great writer of the Shulchan Aruch. You can actually go into meditative trance and connect with the Rambam Maimonides, have halachic discussions. Go back to the days of the Gemara and make contact with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who saved Torah in the days of the destruction of Jerusalem, Rabbi Akiva, or even Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai himself. Now, these personages, they're real, but there is an element to their reality, which is one thing, and then there's an element to their reality, which is another thing. Now, we can refer to those things I'm referring to here as either the actual elements of an individual's personality, or someone who has become an archetype of things. So, with that respect, we must be sensitive to whether we are contacting the individual personage or the archetype of the tzaddik. Now, you might say, well, that's rather psychological. No. What I'm actually referring to, as we will see in the text here, is what we call in Hebrew the Naran Hai. The Naran Hai is a word, combined word, which references the 5 levels of the human soul, which in Hebrew, of course, are the Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Haya, and Yehida. Now, if you want to make contact with the Ascended Master, well, as this teaching is going to show you, well, where and what are you contacting? All right? Do I contact the Nefesh level, the Ruach level, the Neshama? What are those things? How do I recognize them? How do I tell the difference between one thing and the other? How do I know if I am deceiving myself by having delusions, or if there's something really there. Now, these are the things that we have to make very clear. Again, just as a side note, don't think that you can use this type of meditation to connect with angels. No, you can't. Why? Angels don't have this kind of consciousness. Therefore, we don't make contact with them in this way. Do we make contact with angels? Sure, all the time. But they have their own area code, if you will, and this is a different area code. It's like dialing different countries. So don't confuse the two. Don't think that you can practice these things. I'm going to talk to the Archangel Michael or Gabriel or Raziel or Metatron. Well, I mean, you can make yourself believe whatever you want. You can do this meditation and believe that you are talking to the ascended soul of Harry Potter. There's no Harry Potter. There's no ascended soul of Harry Potter. It's all fiction. But you can make your mind believe anything that you want. In Hebrew, we call these falsehoods a klipa, a husk, or a shell. So this and the peeling away of those husks and shells becomes important for us to understand in what we're doing. Now, before we get into the details here, let's define facts. Somebody's asking about what about departed loved ones? Yes and no, because again, as they say, the details are everything. Now, let's define different levels of the soul. As you can imagine, you, me, I, any of us, we have multiple layers within ourselves. And layers is a good way to refer to a soul. Because we refer to a soul, don't think of it as just some blob of energy. And you get all these 5 blobs, they come together. It's not like that. You are a monad of consciousness. You are an orb of light. But you are not independent or distinct from anything and everything else. There's a level in which we are part of a greater whole. And then out of that greater whole comes an identity of individuation. And out of that identity of individuation materializes down through lower and lower levels of consciousness until we can enter into a realm or a domain of isolated, the word that came into my head, I'll say it, isolated delusion, which is pretty much this world. Now, let's get real. That part which is what we call our higher selves, the real essence of our identity, the individuated true essence of an individual. This is what we call one's neshama soul. The neshama soul is, again, your higher self, which guides your lower self in the direction that is needed for your lower self to perform its function in this world. Now, let's explain what the heck that's all about. Why do we even have a higher world and a lower world, a higher soul and a lower soul and the like? Well, pretty much it's like this. Think about this world of ours as this flat dimension, like my hand here. And think of our souls as coming in from a higher plane. Okay? Now, let's make believe this is like 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional world. Here we are coming from a higher dimension. We're supposed to be able to touch this world and go up. Go in, go through it, come back out and up. All right? And this way we interact with the world. You see, like I'm bonding with the fingers. And this way, the world, instead of saying flat and below, can be elevated and integrated into the whole gyroscope, harmonic fluency of existence. But what happens when that part of us comes into this world, and instead of elevating it into the flow, gets stuck and you can't get out? You can't get out, you're stuck. That causes imbalance, and the whole system gets messed up. Well, that part of our light consciousness that touched this level and got stuck here. That's a lowest level of our frequency and vibration. And that lowest level of frequency and vibration materializes in physical bodies like this one and takes on an identity associated with the physical body for the time. So at this time, at this moment, my energy is in this physical body and is born and is identified as Ariel Tzadok. And in this body, that is where my energy is centered. Now, the identity of Ariel Tzadok, in my case, of course, yours is in your case, is only that little itsy bitsy tip of the iceberg of my real self. That part of me, which is Ariel Tzadok, which is stuck in this world, in this physical body. It's not like my consciousness can just go pick up and go walk away and have lunch in the Pleiades tomorrow and come back. Yes, there's astral travel and all that. Yes, we can do that and the like. But we're still bound to the body. So that part of us, which is, if you will, stuck here, given the individual identity within the context of the individual lifetime, this is that part of the soul which we call nefesh. The nefesh is, if you will, body consciousness. It is generated by, energized by what we call the life force energy of the universe. You can call it nefesh. You can call it chi, or you can call it orgone, or anything else. It's that same vibrant energy. Now, when the body dies, that part of my identity, which is the nefesh, actually gets reabsorbed, or it should get reabsorbed, into the higher self, unless something's blocking it, which then means it has to come bounce back down here, reincarnation. Well, what then happens to me as Ariel if I get reabsorbed back into my higher self? Now remember, my higher self could take a part of it and materialize in this world, and to me now is Ariel, or it can materialize in 100 different forms in 100 different places in space and time. So my higher self might have 100 different manifestations of me in all the different bodies in the world. Male, female, even animal or mineral. Yeah, it can be all over the place. And we call these sparks of souls. And in some case, we call these soul mates when the male and the female want to meet up. And that's why you can have multiple sparks of male and female that meet up. So it's not like you have just one. Well, you do. You have one soul mate, but it can be materialized in many different bodies. So just to digress for a second, let's say you're destined to be with so-and-so. And so-and-so gets hit by a car, God forbid, and dies. Well, it doesn't mean you live alone forever. It just means that spark will find on the body to be in, and it will find you when the time comes. All right, so that's how that stuff works. But the nefesh level of soul, all right, the identity, this is a residual to the grave. It is not your higher self. It's the residual that's left after your true self is reabsorbed above. And we call this the Havale the Grama, or like the spirit that resides in the earth. So if you were to go to the graveyard and you hear spirits talking in the grave, what you are connecting with is the residual nefesh, or the Havale the Grama, of the individual who is there. And you have many stories in the Gemara and elsewise about people, going to the graveyard and hear weird stuff. And you might be familiar with a very famous biblical story when King Saul needs to talk to Shmuel, the prophet Shmuel HaNavi. He's kind of like dead. So he goes to a witch, all right? The wicked witch of the west, up indoor really, calls up Shmuel's soul. Now, what soul is this that he called up? Didn't call up soul, the Shmuel's higher self, his neshama, because that's up in the higher dimensions. He connected with the Havale da Grama, or the residual of the identity of the Nefesh. So, when we want to connect with the soul of an ascended master, remember that word ascended? We're not seeking to connect with this, the residual of the identity of the individual historically who resides in this, level, in this world. Again, the Havale de Grama, the Nefesh level of soul. Let's say, for example, you want to connect with the soul of the dearly departed Rebbe, Mazel Tov. So fine, you do. And if you connect only at this Nefesh level, guess what you're going to come in contact with? Not his higher wisdom, but all of his backaches, his headaches, right? The fact that he really enjoyed eating this kind of food, and he did this kind of thing, and you're connecting with the real physicality. It's not very enlightening. So that is why, yes, if you're making a connection with the ascended tzaddik, you will include that as a peripheral, but that's not what you want. So therefore, to go to a graveside and try to connect with the actual historicity of the individual. Many people go to graves and try to do that. That's not what it's all about. And for those who are doing that, whether they know it or not, are mistakenly committing avodah zarah. So it's a big, big problem. Don't do that. So this explains what is a nefesh level of soul. So what the heck is a ruach, right? Your ruach, well, first of all, the nefesh, like I said, it gives rise to your individual identity, which dissipates with the death of the body. But your identity has always been full of passion, motivation. Something has always pushed you forward. It's a spirit of motivation. That is what we call the Ruach. The Ruach, again, is not you personally, but what motivated you personally. And that, again, dissipates and leaves once the physical body and the association with the body is gone. So you'll read in books like the Zohar that speak about the soul, that the nefesh and the ruach each go back to where they belong. So what are you left with? Well, your higher self. So when you and I pass out of the body, we can awaken in a different reality, which, depending on the individual, might look not too different from the world we're in right now. That's really what death is. When you wake up, no, you're not going up to some pearly gates. The demons aren't waiting there to throw you into hell. You wake up and you look around and go, I'm dead? Really? This is kind of looked like what I expected. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this then becomes a process of absorption, in which your lower consciousness is reabsorbed into your higher consciousness in an evolving state. Now, what we call our higher consciousness now, the neshama level, this is where we tap into what we call the collective. Because our higher selves, while they exist as individuals, are still tapped into what we call the neshama of the neshama, tapped into the collective whole, the hive mind of humanity, what the Kabbalah would say, all souls collective in Adam, or what others would call the Akashic records, wherein which all consciousnesses merge into the singularity of consciousness. And this is where the real ascended masters reside. So therefore, if you want to make contact with the ascended master of your past Rebbe, you're not interested in the part of him that lived on the earth. You're not interested in asking his departed soul, what did he like to have for lunch? You want to know, hey, what's happening up there? What's it like to be up there? Well, that is where revelation and insight comes from. Now, that is what we connect into, that collective element and aspect. There are many ways in meditation of how to do this. But you have to understand the ways and means and function of meditation in the first place. So, when we're dealing with the kavanot system of the Ari, Rabbi Chaim Vital, they have all these different names and stuff like that. People make the terrible mistake of thinking you're supposed to like just look at these names or read them and then poof, by magic, things happen. And they actually try to convince themselves that these things happen. And that's not the way it works. Someone is asking if we can connect with Enoch. No, you don't connect with Enoch because you don't know much about it. You connect with the Metatron, but that's angelic. Well, he was Enoch. No, Enoch was absorbed into the Metatron race, that collective that we're talking about here. And I've taught about this many other places. Go check out the videos on YouTube. But now, tapping into the Neshama consciousness of another, well, guess what you need to do? Yeah, you need to tap into your own Neshama consciousness in order to connect with the Neshama consciousness of someone else. Why? You got to be at the same level in order to, if you will, dial with the same area code to connect. It's really that simple. So then how do we do it? What's it all about? What makes this real as opposed to what makes it delusional? Now that is why we're here. So if you read at the bottom of the page, right there, I give all these instructions here. All right, let me read them to you because remember, this order is from the Ari'zal. It's from Ruach HaKodesh, authored, of course, by Rabbi Chaim Vital, and it is brought down to us by Rabbi Yosef Chaim, the famous Ben Ish Chai, in his book, Dat Utvuna. Is this dangerous for a non-Jew to meditate in order to connect with our Neshama? Of course not. Why on earth would there be any danger there? Like the Tana de Eliyahu, Eliyahu 9 says, Jew or Gentile, man or woman, everyone can receive Ruach HaKodesh. Everybody can do this depending on what you're willing to do. So don't look at that as being different. So, in that, we read here that you meditate upon bonding your Neshama with the Neshama of the Tzaddik. Remember that level? And you do this as well when meditating at the Ruach and the Nefesh level, which again, we'll explain. And then you'll succeed in bonding all these aspects of yourself with the corresponding aspect of the Tzaddik. All right, then all you merit to know what you desire and all that you ask will be given you. Okay, but the meditation requires great concentration. You must cleanse your heart of all other thoughts and detach your soul from your body. No, don't die, please. Or else you could be seriously harmed. Not my words, but got to pass them on. So, what the heck is all this about? Okay, let's talk about consciousness. Right now, I am in Nefesh consciousness. I am aware of my physical surroundings, right? This is my nose. I scratch my nose. Do you think my soul, my higher self, gives a darn whether I'm scratching my nose, fixing my glasses, playing with my kippah, or anything of the kind? No. Energy is energy. Physicality, which is a lower form of energy. Remember, E equals mc squared. Einstein. Energy is mass. Mass is energy. Okay? But everything's at the levels. So, as we have been taught meditation everywhere, everything focuses on what we call your intent. The word that Chaim Vital uses for intent, of course, is kavanah, which is the focus of your attention. So, I want to sit here and meditate. I'm meditating. I'm being very holy. I'm scratching my nose, playing with my kippah, right? Playing with my glasses, and I'm meditating. No, you're not. You're not doing anything of the kind. Right? You're sitting there. I don't know what the heck you're doing. It says here, remember, it says detach your soul from your body. Now, it's not as dangerous as it sounds. And every one of us has done it. You just don't realize that you've done it. How many of you, come on now, be honest with yourselves, have gotten so lost in daydreaming that you just sit there and you just sit there and you sit there and... well, where did I go? What happened, right? You know you've daydreamed like that. You know you space out. That's what we call it today. You've become completely divorced from everything around you, and you go completely within into your mind, your daydream. And those are the times you know, you can have really weird thoughts, like dreams, like visions. You can sit there and go in that state, and all of a sudden you're somewhere else, and you're seeing things. You're going, gee, that's kind of weird. Boom! Oh, wow. What the heck just happened to me? That's the kind of state. We know it happens to us all the time, but we need to focus and get ourselves into it at will. This is the secret of the ascent path in the Ma'aseh Merkava. This is the real way to do things. How do you get into that state? We have a gazillion ways. And this is one of those ways when we get to that. But I want you to understand the state of mind that you're trying to tap into. So if you're going to connect with an ascended master, it's not that you're going to sit and close your eyes and all of a sudden you're going to have a visualization of an old man, of course, man, with long white beard. I am the holy prophet. I am fill in the blank. Yochanan ben Zakkai, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Rambam, Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Ari'zal, whatever. And I am here to reveal to you sacred knowledge. Okay, you know what? If I ever had an experience like that, I'd open my eyes, look around, see if anybody's trying to blow any, like marijuana smoke in my room. What the hell is going on? That's not normal. That's really weird stuff. No, we don't do that. Definitely we don't take drugs, just for the record here. But anyway, that's not how it works. And I know people who have experiences like that. I get emails all the time. Rabbi, I did a meditation and I'm seeing this one, I'm seeing that one, and they're telling me things. Mazel tov. I had one student who practiced a idolatrous form of meditation for many, many years. And I won't mention, of course, the student. I will mention the idolatrous form. It's Transcendental Meditation. Remember the old Maharishi stuff? For those of you who might not remember, years and years and years ago, I lived in Iowa. And I worked with the TMers. No, I could never practice TM, right? Even though I was interested and curious, in order to learn TM, you had an initiation called a puja, where you had to take like some flowers and fruit and offer it on an altar. You don't get more idolatrous than that. So TM is O-U-T, out. But anyway, I saw how these people, from this type, and they meditated and they were able to accomplish certain things, even though it came from stuff. And when they tried to make the transition into the Jewish, everything hit them like a ton of bricks. They were clouded, they were confused, they were believing things which are completely delusional. One person came to me, says, I am channeling Elijah the prophet. Okay. So I said, channel. And the guy goes into a trance. This is, I am Elijah the prophet. Shalom Aleichem, Eliyahu Nabi, ma shlomcha? No, ma haya, ma inyanim, yesh li she'elot lishol otcha. And of course the guy says, speak to me in English. And I say, lama necha nedaber itcha באנגלית? נו, אתה אליהו הנביא, אתה דיברת עברית בחייך פה, אז בוודאי אתה לא שכחת את העברית שלך. Right? In other words, I put him to the test. I say, you're Eliyahu? Oh, really? So let's talk in Hebrew. I mean, if you're a historical figure, you spoke Hebrew when you were alive, you should remember it. Proof that it was baloney. That's how you can tell. All right? This is not how you bond with a real tzaddik. It's not verbal or visual communication. It is dealing with the sensitivities within the psyche that you might not even be aware of happening as it is happening. All right? All right, I'm going to embarrass her. I'm going to embarrass the Rabbanit. All right? Hopefully she won't. If you see anything come flying in this way, hitting me in the head, it's from her. You should know. She's got great aim, too. The Rabbanit has had a love affair with Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. She's a big, big Breslover. And she loves studying Rabbi Nachman. I'm not a Chassid. She's a Chassid of the Rebbe. And she will sit, and when she goes into, she'll yell and scream at me. God forbid I make any noise. She goes in with like these headphones on. She blocks out the sight, the sound. The real people, the dude, she doesn't even know she's doing it. And she goes off in this little, she goes off in her la la land, right? And she gets tapped. She gets touched. No, she's not going to speak to me in the words of Rabbi Nachman in Yiddish. That's the nefesh level. But she comes back with these real zingers of wisdom and insight. And I sit there and say, I don't let her know. Now she's learning this. She's going to yell at me afterwards. I hate things from her. But she's learning. And I recognize the insights. I recognize that she taps into these things because of the passion. The passion which in this we call the Ma'im Nokbin, which means the feminine waters, the desire to attach. And in that passion, going off into that zone, that's where you make contact. Now, let me give you an example of one of the greatest contactees, if you will. She's laughing over here. One of these days, she's reading that. One of these days, I tell you, I'm going to drag her onto camera. One of these days, she's real tsanua. She doesn't want to come on, so what am I going to do? But anyway, Rabbi Yosef Karo, who is the famous author of the Code of Jewish Law, the Shulchan Aruch. People say, why do we have to follow the Code of Law? Why do we have to do Judaism and all those laws and blah, blah, blah? I want to be spiritual. Yeah, you want to have a soul without a body. You know what we call a soul without a body? A ghost. Well, I want to have a strong body. Yeah, well, you need a soul for that body, or otherwise the body is called dead. You need the two going together. Remember to talk about harmony of the worlds, fluidity and movement here? Okay. Yosef Karo, big guy. No one has more authority than this guy. He was one of these channelers. Okay? When he wanted to connect with the Torah, her female self. And he would chant chapters of the Mishnah, the words of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. Now, he never connected with the soul of Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. He's not interested. But Rabbi Yosef, I'll tell you exactly how it was. He would read these words as a chant, right? And he would go off into that dazing place, like I said. Head would jerk back, his mouth would open, and a female voice would come out and say, I am the Shekhinah. I am the Mishnah, and I will guide and instruct you. And his students are out there writing every word down. The kid was coming out of his mouth, and they wrote it all down, and the book was called the Writings or the Teachings of the Guide, or Magid Misharim. The Magid Misharim is available, I think, in English to this very day. Yeah. And it shows you these types of insights. Didn't teach him universal truths about what's going on in the Pleiades. Didn't really care. He's interested in teachings of Torah. But the Shekhinah connected with him because that's what he wanted to do. Now let's turn to you and I. Who should we choose? We have so many different rabbis, so many different, in quote, ascended masters. Who should we attach to? Eeny, meeny, chili beany, these spirits are about to speak. Remember Rocky and Bullwinkle? No. Ha ha. Dating myself. Youngsters. You should know. One of the things, you're talking about having things filled in your mind. I grew up in the 60s. And in my day, we always used to watch cartoons. All those cartoons from the 60s, for God only knows reason, I've never forgotten to this day. I know all the old 60s cartoons, the theme songs. I have other people, really, really big friends of mine who are like big top scholars, people, like John Hogue, the famous Nostradamus scholar and the like. When we get together and schmooze, people want to hear great holy things from us. We sit there, we sing Super Chicken theme songs together. If you don't like it. Getting back to business. When you want to tap in, who are you going to call? Right? Who are you going to call? I don't know. Maybe today I'm interested in contacting Rebbitzin, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. So let's do like a seance. Oh, I call on the spirit of Rabbi Nachman. Can you hear me? And I close my eyes and I see a man with a white kippah and a white beard going, na na Nachman, oy 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 oy. Is that you, Rabbi Nachman? Oh, shalom aleichem. No, that's your imagination. All right. You've either had a little too much l'chaim there to drink, or you're doing the other forbidden stuff. That's not it. That's not it at all. Historically speaking, just to know, Rabbi Nachman died as a young man. He never had white hair, probably. But anyway, getting back to business. Who should we contact? Who do I want to talk to? If you don't have that answer, you're not ready for this meditation. Because your neshama, your higher self, is in a cluster of the collective whole. Think of the galaxy, all right? You have stars, and they're all joined together in a single galaxy. Ours is the Milky Way. Well, think of each one of the stars as one of our souls. So all of our souls are in a cluster together, and that's a group called family of souls. And that's kind of like a galaxy. Well, that cluster galaxy of souls, and the center, whatever the heck the center of our universe, our galaxy is, that's like the source soul, and we're all branches coming off from it. Well, anyone in our cluster, we can connect to. Now, you've heard of cluster souls before. Rabbi Chaim refers to these as shoreshim, or source souls. And he refers to the big ones as the shoresh Cain, the Cain source souls, shoresh Hevel, Abel source souls, or any of the kind. Recently, in the Torah portion, we spoke about Joseph. And we say how Yosef Tzaddik in the Bible, in the night before he saw Pharaoh, he was, if you will, in quote, absorbed into, connected to the Metatron souls in that collective. And he became as if an incarnate of Metatron, in the same way that Enoch ascended into the Metatron. And that's what gave him that power of soul. So, who are you to contact? Answer, who you connected to? I don't know that answer. Don't ask me. You got to know that. Well, how are you going to figure that out? I should think about it. No? No! It's nothing you think about. You have to feel it. The connection between the neshama, the higher self, and your lower self is that ruach area, which is that passion, that emotion. It has to be felt in your guts. Certain people have an emotional affinity with certain others. That is the one you want attached to. That is the tzaddik that you will have the power to attach to. Why? Because if that emotional, that gut, that passion, mayim nokvin, is already there, that is then the force, let me rephrase, the revelation of the glue, which is already there in the cluster souls of your source. And that is where you will be able to connect. So again, using the example of like a galaxy, if we're in the Milky Way galaxy and this is our cluster of souls, and you want to contact a soul that's all the way over there in Andromeda, or another one that's 100 million light years away on the other side of the galaxy, well, it might be a little harder. You don't have necessarily the emotional connection to that. And you're not going to have much success in that connection because you're missing the glue that bonds. Okay? I've explained to you now how the system works. Now I'm going to review with you the technique. Again, you can download this, and if you haven't downloaded this already, I don't know how you expect to follow, but you need to have this understanding. Normally, as you know, our classes go an hour. We're going to go over. Too bad. All right, if you're busy and you got to go, all right, buenas noches, adios, hasta luego. I'll see you next time. All right, but stick around. Hey, that's the wonders of like video. You pause it, you come back when you're ready. Okay. Kavanot. To unite with the Tzaddik. Who? You got to figure that out. First, you meditate upon the name Havaya. Whenever we have the name of Hashem, Yud, Ke, Vav, Ke, our tradition is we refer to it, can't say the name, you can't spell it out. So we refer to it as Havaya, as if it was spelled He, Vav, Yud, He, Havaya. Okay? So when you see the name Havaya, the word Havaya, know that it means Yud, Ke, Vav, Ke. First, you meditate on Yud, Ke, Vav, Ke. What's that have to do with anything? I thought I'm trying to connect with the tzaddik. How does God get into this? How does God get into this? Wait a second. Let's just remember something. Okay? Here we are down below. Here's the neshama of the guy up here we're trying to connect to. And above, obviously, everything is God. Which do you think is the easiest way to work? From bottom up or from the top down? I should play the Jeopardy music while you're thinking that one out. We always work from the top down. That's why we tap into the collective. Yud, Ke, Vav, Ke. This is the ultimate reason why we say the Shema Yisrael every single day. Right? Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Interpret that. Don't say God is our Lord, God is one. Say God is our Lord, God is everything. The unity, the singularity. And this is why we elongate, if you look properly in halakha and practice, the dalet, the last letter of the Hebrew word echad, and it's not pronounced as a D, duh, it's pronounced as a TH, and it's a vibrational sound. And if you get it in that low vibrational pitch, your whole body will vibrate and you'll tap into like the hormonal energy of the universe, which is like that universal constant of energy. That's where you're focusing. That's the singularity. That's tapping into Yud, Ke, Vav, Ke, God. And that's where we start. Because from there, now that we're at the singularity, we go into the differentiations in the singularity. So we say, contemplate uniting the Holy One, blessed be He, Yud, Ke, Vav, Ke, with the Shekhinah, which represents by the letters Vav He, which represent love, and Yud He, which represent all. Okay, let's explain that. Shekhinah, the divine presence. Remember we just spoke about that universal constant, that energy. What do they call it? Like the echo of the Big Bang. As you know, everything in physical matter, somehow, somewhere, at every subatomic particle, it knows what to do. The electron knows to go here. The proton knows to go there. This one knows to be negative. This one knows to be positive. How the heck does it know all this stuff? Right? Somehow, somewhere, all the laws of nature must have been taught by a lawgiver. That is the presence of God in nature. And that's what we call the indwelling presence. Hebrew, Shekhinah. That is the laws of nature. But above and beyond the laws of nature, there is that higher vibrational realm called consciousness. When consciousness is imprisoned in physical form and is subject to physical form, that is what we call exile. It's kind of like where we're at right now. And that is where Elohim, or the name representing the physicality of form, dominates and limits Yud Ke Vav Ke's fluidity. And that's a breach of the unity of Yud Ke Vav Ke and Elohim. So the whole teaching proclamation of Judaism is Hashem, Yud Ke Vav Ke, Hu Elohim. And that means God is Lord. But that's not just a political or religious proclamation. It's bringing down the fluid energy into the realm of matter to vibrate the level of matter and make it more fluid. This is represented by what we call the unity of Yud Ke Vav Ke, or Hashem, with the Shekhinah. So the letters Yud and He of the holy name represent that higher domain of the realm of mind and thought and consciousness, represented this Sephirot called Chochmah and Bina, which we're going to see we'll get to in a minute, And then Vav and He. Vav is always the realm of passion and emotion, source of our Torah. And He, the physical form. So you have to have mind and consciousness merging with passion to materialize in form. That is the union of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. That concept is the first thing you have to have in mind when you want to do this. Remember, it's called expanding consciousness. This isn't magic. This is reality. So therefore, you got to focus your mind on what it is you're trying to do. Right? If you want to, I don't know, fix the plumbing, you're not going to be doing that while you're watching YouTube videos or busy playing games on Facebook. You got to focus on what you're doing. Focus here. Focus on expanding your mind. Get in touch with the reality of the universe. How do I do that? You contemplate the name Havaya in Chochmah with the vowel Patach. As you know, every one of the 10 Sefirot has one of the vowels associated with it. I've covered this in a whole bunch of places, and I don't have to get into all the details here. Suffice it to say that at the level of Chochmah, that's where we start, that's the Chaya level of soul, corresponding to the realm of intuition, the psychic realm of the mind. All right? That's the higher self. That corresponds to the sphere Chochmah. And the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is in all the 10 Sefirot, because all the 10 Sefirot are just the garments, if you will, of the name. So we differentiate the presence of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei in a Sephira by associating that name with a set of vowels, and that represents the Sephira. So Yud Kei Vav Kei with the vowels Patach represents the Sephira Chochmah. What is Chochmah? Intuitive, psychic, tapping into your imaginative mind, the psychic, intuitive, archetypal mind, in which we all have our source. But then, you got to do something with it. It says, you contemplate this name, and the name Ehyeh in Bina, because the name Ehyeh, Aleph Kei Yud Kei, that corresponds to the realm of Bina, which is the intellect and the mind. So essentially, the first thing I have to do if I really want to make contact is tap into my unconscious content, which you can't really tap into because it's unconscious. But I can tap into the unconscious and draw from it into my conscious mind. Oh, you want to get really Kabbalistic? According to the kavanot of the Ariel, according to the kavanot of the Rashash, the merging of the psychic intuitive mind into the intellect is said to be through the yesodot of both practices. So it says that using the Aramaic term, shivil dekik of the male penetrates into the womb of the female. You know exactly what I'm getting at when I'm using these terms. It's sexual. It's intimate because it's done with the inner essence of passion. The yichud. The yichud, remember, it means sexual union. The actual Hebrew word in the Kitvei Ariel is zibuk, which means sex. All right? That part of, okay, don't get angry, don't freak out, but this is how it's actually said. A part of the yesod, of the intuitive mind, which is concealed. Remember, it's all concealed. Part of that concealed comes out and penetrates into the intellectual world of the Binah. The Rebbe says, like turning green over here. She can't believe I'm doing this. She should know I'm crazy. But this I'm not being gross or disgusting. I'm telling you what the Kitvei Ariel says. Go look it up in the Shari Kavanot. This is what it says. This is why single people aren't supposed to study Kabbalah. They start getting hot and heavy. It's true. Why am I telling you this? Because this is not an academic intellectual exercise. Good gosh, men and women, you understand human passion. At least I hope you do, right? That's the passion, the yesod, the libido, the mayim nokbin, this passion that gets you connected. It's sexual energy. And a part of the intuitive psychic mind penetrates into your intellect and bing, gives you that tap of insight. In order to try to get there, we have a mental visualization. We take the letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei, and we merge them with the letters of Aleph Kei Yud Kei. That's the merging of the yichud of Chochmah Bina. So you see here, there you go. We'll look it on the page. The Yud of Yud Kei Vav Kei with the Aleph of Ehyeh. The Hey of Havaya with the Hey, etc., and so on. This is called the merging, the Hebrew word yichud, union. And you're merging the different levels. I don't have to get into all the details of it right now. You get the message of it. Think, sexual, because that's what it is. And how does this come about? By the power of the name of Havaya of Yudim. That's the highest level of Yud Ke Vav Ke. All right? That comes from the intuitive psychic mind. That is what penetrates down from the highest realms, comes through its yesod into the Bina. So, that meditative focus is just a visualization technique of what you're trying to accomplish. What you're trying to accomplish here is to tap into the inner essence of a higher collective soul. Somebody is saying here in text, I think the difference from a Jew and a non-Jew is the klipa, not the neshama. Let me tell you the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. All right? When you're in the life of Kiddusha, holiness, and you're doing what's right before God, and you're trying to make these ascents, like the Tana de Eliyahu says, I say this over and over, there's no difference. So don't go belittling yourself in some form of racism, which a lot of fellow rabbis do. Baloney. You're all equal souls before God, period. Let's move on. When you have this passion, right, it's a sexual energy. You don't even realize it. This is what gets you into that state where you're literally going off, you're reading these words, yeah, I'm really into it and stuff like that, all right? And I've seen this with people, all right? Which literally, I've seen them burst into tears when they come in contact with stuff. And what's going on? I don't know. Of course, that's the energy that's coming through. That's the passion that's coming through. Okay? I get that. And so must you. And it says here, this union comes about by the power of the neshama of the Tzaddik, which comes from the Chokhmah, which corresponds to the first letter Yud of the name Havaya. Okay? When you're tapping into somebody, someone who you really feel inclined passionately that you want to connect to, I'm going to tell you the secret. Find their words and repeat them like a mantra. For the Rabbanich, Rabbi Nachman. Okay? Whatever works for you. Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, maybe from the Gemara. Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yosef Karo. Rabbi Yosef Karo himself, he liked the Mishnah. Okay? Rabbi Haimita, read the words over and over again. Focusing on this type of mentality. Say, I want my intuitive psychic side to connect with my intellect, to try to open up a connection. Okay? That is at this neshama level. That type of connection can and does come. But don't expect to see like little old men with white beards in your mind, and they're going to, I'm revealing to you the secrets of the Pleiades. I don't give a darn what the heck's going on in the Pleiades. I don't live in the Pleiades. What do I care what's going on up there? All right? Let them do whatever they're doing up there. I care about it here and now, because that's where I'm at. What can I do to make this world better? So, let's say, for example, I am focused on the soul of Rabbi Chaim Vital. All right, Rabbeinu Chaim, I sit here, I read your works, etc., and so on. I'd really like to get some insights. So I can do this, and I'm sitting here meditating on a section from the Etz Chaim, the Shadow HaKodesh, the Shadow Kiddusha. And all of a sudden, I might go off in my own little trance world, and all of a sudden, no, the camera didn't stop. That's me. I stopped. Wow, I just had this brilliant idea. Bingo! That's what you're looking for. That's the Yehud. That is how that collective from the unknown Chokhmah world comes down, Shvil Dakik, comes into your intellect, and bang, gives you a little zetz. And that is how your mind, your soul, connects with the higher individual. You do this by reciting their words, and the words have to mean something to you. You have to have a passionate connection and a desire for those words. And that is how this stuff works. Let's move on. Meditate on the name Sag, Yud Ke Vav Ke, that's the name corresponding to the intellect. Okay? In order to raise up what we call here the Bina, Mayim Nok Bin. You have to raise up from Bina, from your intellect into your intuition, the feminine waters. This is the power of the desire from below. What does that mean? You really need me to tell you what that means. Okay? Did you ever, all right, ladies, you very well know when you want to get a man's attention, all right, you know what I mean when I say that. You don't hit him in the head with a hammer. You have your ways to do that. Then the man, if he's got any semblance of any normalcy, picks it up. That is what we call the Mayim Nokbin, the feminine waters, the power from below to ascend above. That's exactly what we're doing psychically. We, male, female, doesn't matter, human beings, we're using the same thing to generate the energy into the collective whole to arouse that attention from the, again, unknown, which is the unconscious, and a section, a part of it, that's the key from the Chokhmah, comes in. That's how you do it. But if you don't have that desire, right, then it ain't going to happen. So that desire is where it all starts. We say this meditation comes about by the power of the Neshama, the intellect of the Tzaddik, comes from Bina, corresponding to the first letter Hey of the Shem Havaya. So this is the real meat and potatoes, the bread and butter of the system and how this is done. Afterwards, meditate on the name Yud Ke Vav Ke, again Shem Havaya and Teferet, with the vowel Cholam, with the name Adonai, and then you join them together, and this is done by the name Yud Ke Vav Ke. And remember we said above, you had Yud Ke, which is the realm of the mind and above, and Vav Ke, which is the passion, the body below. So essentially, what you're doing is at both levels. You had the higher realm, Chokhmah Bina, corresponding to the Yud and the Hey, and now you're bringing it down more to your conscious mind, the passion, represented by the Vav, which is Tiferet, the heart, and Malchut, which corresponds, if you remember, to your intellect in this world, your identity of self in this world. And this is the merging. Says this union comes about by the Ruach, represented by the Vav. Then you meditate on the name Yud Ke Vav Ke Ben. This is again to raise up the feminine waters. You have to have the power and the desire. And that is what merges the whole system. So ultimately, all of these letters and names, etc., these aren't sounds. You're not supposed to go, oh, ah, yo, unless that helps. You're supposed to remember what it means. And that is what it's all about. Somebody says Jews don't have a klipa. Remember Hanukkah? Yeah, I do remember Hanukkah. And Jews got some of the biggest klipot in them all. I don't know where on earth that's coming from. But anyway, yeah. Somebody's saying, Tanya Zohar, all right, say that Gentiles have no neshama. Yeah, well, the Tanya says that, not the Zohar. I'm not going to get into the Tanya. Gentiles have a neshama just like everybody else, because that's what the Tana of Eliyahu says. You know, something, the words of Eliyahu Hanavi, for me, that's good enough. If you want to make racist subdivisions and look down upon others, well, then you're disconnecting your own soul. We think of Yehud and all souls being one in Adam Rishon. And if you want to believe otherwise, hey, cool, groovy, you believe whatever you want. Okay? That is what it is. All right? And if you want to go and argue your sources from academic, the height, go do what you said. Okay? Somebody says, you don't believe? Don't believe. What do I care? All right? You're free to believe whatever you want. You're free to do whatever you want. But if you're going to continue in your path, you will create what's called pirut, separation, and you'll face the judgment from HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Yom HaDin, why you didn't make Yehud, and therefore violated the Shema Yisrael every single time you said it. Because the height, as the Ashkenazim said, I don't care, because ultimately, after a million Gilgulim, you're going to get it right, and don't worry about it. You'll be Gan Eden with the rest of us sooner or later. But that being said, I got zero tolerance for racists here. Absolutely none. So, with that being said, I've explained to you the system. All right? And people, if you have, sorry, you know what? I'm going to say it. I know I'm going to offend people. You got idiots out there. Oh, you can't do this because you're not this and that. You know what? Yeah. Okay. You don't have to tell people. something, love and passion for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is for everybody. And if you have a passion for somebody and a connection to any of the great holy tzaddikim, connect. But I will warn you, don't try to use this to connect with avatars of other religions or other things, because you don't know how much any of that is actual history or any of it is just fantasy. So you can try to create, connect with somebody from a midrash. You're going to get a busy signal or a fantasy. That's a problem. But a lot of people, unfortunately, get deluded by fantasies because they just don't know any better. And don't be surprised if you actually make contact with an ascended soul who will give you an impression, because most contact and communion is impression. Remember, we said in the higher realm, it's not verbal, unless you're in a trance like Rabbi Yosef Karo. And they're going to tell you things. Hey, wait a second, didn't you write in your book like this or like that? To which you'll say, yeah, but that's when I was on earth, and now that I'm in Shemayim, I see things differently. There have a lot of interesting episodes, things like that. You ask Rabbi Yehuda Fatia about things like that. But okay, you get the point of what I'm trying to get in. You can use this as an example. But just by reading the words, like I said at the beginning, it's like telling you the pedals of a car. Mazel tov. It doesn't mean you know how to drive. Hopefully now I've taught you what you need to know. And now you're going to go out and try to drive and do what you need to do. Okay? It's up to you what you want. But if you want to connect to the greater Yichud, union, which is the name of Hashem, connect with your higher self, your source. All right? And remember, you never know who your source is. No one knows where your soul comes from. No one knows where your soul has been. No one knows who is who and what is what. And anybody who has an arrogance to think that they're better or greater or holier than anyone else, you know what? Don't waste your time. It's just not worth it. You focus on Hashem. You focus on doing what's right. And that is what counts. Okay? This is why we say Shaviti Hashem L'negdi Tamid. And that's why with this you'll see right at the top, right? There's the Shaviti right there. Because Yud Kei Vav Kei is in charge of all, and that's the source of all, and that's what we do, and nothing else matters. And anybody else who wants to tell you something, as we say, Gesundheit, very nice, you say whatever you want, you go do what you want, and you go follow your path. Wherever it leads you, it will lead you. But for those who actually want to make a difference, to try to create yichud, to try to actually do something in our crazy world, you notice the world's getting a little crazier as we go along here? Yeah, well, we need psychic warriors. We need more and more of us. We're going to do things like this. And those people who don't want, like I said, adios, cool, groovy, I don't care. Why? Because it's in God's hand. I'm not, what do you think? You think I'm the one special? I'm a regular, normal guy. I'm from Long Island, New York. I haven't lost my accent, thank God. All right? I'm just a regular, everyday guy here. All right? I'm just crazy. And I admit it. I have a question here. At what point do you proceed from one step to the next? Do you know when you proceed from one step to the next? When you're in the act of intimacy with your spouse. When do you stop doing one thing and start doing another? Haven't you read that in the book? Didn't you ever read that in the book? Come on. Those of you who are married, you're with the husband and the wife, right? Don't you know, you stop the kiss and then you do the hug and then you do this and then you do that, right? Bump, 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 bump. Anybody who ever makes love like that is going to end up divorced in 2 seconds. No, you go with the flow. That's an intellectual question. I know the guy who asked this question. He's like an MIT scientist. So typical. That's your Bina mind talking. You got to be penetrated by your Chokhmah mind and allow the fluidness, the romance of the moment to take you. That is the passion. That is the Yehud. And that is the secret of how this works. Got it? Alrighty, guys. That's it. All right? This, just for the timestamp, it's 21st of December 2020. Earlier this evening before class, we had the great solstice. Yeah, it was the great solstice. The great, what the heck is that called? The conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. Actually, it was outside the front. You can go see it. My binoculars are broken figures. But anyway, yeah, that was there. What does that mean? Go ask an astrologer. What do I know? But weird things are happening. And we need psychic soldiers who are willing, ready, and able to do this. That's why KosherTorah is here at your disposal to teach you to do just this. Take this, guys. Run with it. Dance with it. Make love to it. And as it says, Hashem lo yimana tov leholchim betamim. God will not hold back good from those who go with innocence. And a question here in text, is it safe to project your neshama? You want to do astral travel? Just be careful where you go. You want to go and visit New York City? There are certain areas I would stay out of. You want to go projecting into the astral plane? There are certain areas I would stay out of. Well, how do I know which is which? Yeah, well, you better know your way around before you start messing around. Or otherwise, yeah. Alrighty, guys. That's it. Zilgamar, in the wise words of Rabbi Hillel. Go now and do this. Okay? You have questions? You got my email. All right? Thank you for your support. You know, KosherTorah.com. We rely upon you. I'm here for you. You be here for me. If you're watching this on YouTube, click like, subscribe to our channel, do a lot of business stuff that I never bother to mention. And again, we'll see you all soon. Thanks again. Shalom.